Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Brewing with Jim. My name is Joseph Jasper, question asker, co-host, and all that. But more importantly, as always, I am joined by Mr. Jim Brewington.
It's not more importantly, but here I am, and it's good to be with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a show where we get audience questions, and we have the opportunity to talk about them, to expound on them, and to try to provide wisdom, insight, answers, if possible,
right,
for what our audience
we
is
provide
thinking
answers.
About. Sure.
Whether they're any good or not.
It's up to the audience,
no, we do.
I guess.
We take this seriously.
We do.
We have fun doing it, but we take it seriously.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great balance of those two things. So let's get to our question for the week.
Let's do.
This is a fun and pretty specific thing. It says, at what point should a pastor tell a person to talk to a psychologist, or I guess a professional of some sort? I'm imagining a situation where you are pastoring a person, and that comes with a lot of different elements. There's advice, there's prayer, there can be conviction, there can be a lot of things spoken into a congregant, and you know way better than I do as a pastor.
This is a serious question, and I'm not quite sure what the scenario is, but what pastoral counseling is a duty, a responsibility, a pleasure, but not always fun for a pastor to be involved in. I think that before we get started, we've already started, but it would be good to just augment on the disclaimer that we have at the end of the program.
That's a good point.
That I am not a mental health expert.
Yep.
I will give you a little bit of my background, so just for information.
Yeah, good context.
I have a undergraduate degree in psychology and another one. I have double bachelor's in criminology. My psychology had an emphasis in abnormal psychology, and I have done an internship with a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, PhD, where we worked with multiple personality disorder, and it's now called dissociative disorder. So, and I've done hours and hours and hours of counseling. There have been times when I have recommended people see a professional because of my sense that there is something off here.
Yeah.
There is, and it could be mental illness, it could be a psychological or behavior disorder, it could be something isn't coming together, but I do have an alertness to this when I talk to people. And that alertness has led me to refer people to an expert in the area. Now, there are two or three experts. An MD who specializes in mental health is a psychiatrist.
That's right.
And psychiatrists are MDs. There are clinical psychologists who have a PhD, and their requirement to be licensed as a clinical psychologist involves hours and hours and hours of supervised counseling.
That's right.
With people in psychotherapy and so forth. It concerns me that pastors are sometimes looked upon as mental health experts or experts in all areas, and we are not necessarily that.
Yeah.
This may be tangential, but I have an enormous problem with pastors who receive ordination from a coupon at the back of a Field and Stream magazine for $200 because they want to do a wedding.
Sure.
And those ordinations are recognized by the state, at least in California, as a credential.
Legitimate,
to solemnize a marriage, do a wedding.
Yeah.
That practice, I'm opposed to it because it confuses people about what does a pastor know and what does a pastor do.
Could not agree more.
Okay, that to one side. I think that it is very, very important to follow some biblical principles when counseling. It's called nouthetic counseling. And nouthetic is a word that comes from the Greek that Paul used in his epistles regarding how do you counsel somebody biblically. First of all, you have to determine what the issue is. And the presented complaint, the presented issue often is not the issue. So it requires some digging and some
Sure.
thinking and some alertness to what exactly is the issue here. Then we use biblical principles for guiding people and helping them recognize these. Okay, all of that is technical stuff. I'm probably talking not to a majority of pastors, but to others. And be aware of, if you are seeking counsel, be aware of the credentials and the emphasis of the person that you're talking to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now,
Absolutely.
There needs to be, if you are a counselor, if you are a pastor, there needs to be an awareness and an alertness to disorders. And that comes from education, it comes from training, and it comes from DSM-5-TR, which is the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual.
Okay.
And we're at version 5 now, that lists the psychiatric, psychological issues and the number of symptoms and how often they have to occur, and it's really detailed.
Really complex.
The most recent is DSM-5 TR, which means text revision. Okay, all this is not really going to be applicable to everybody who's listening.
Yeah.
But there are signs of depression. That's very common. People who come to pastors.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
what is that depression? It doesn't always appear to be sadness. It can be not wanting to get out of bed. It can be loss of appetite. It can be
Distancing,
so many things.
Yeah.
When you're talking to somebody, a pastor is talking to somebody, be alert to those. Well, how do I know what to be alert to? Study.
Absolutely.
That's part of our obligation
Yes.
is to know these things about people.
Yes.
Often we have people who are so depressed that they have suicidal ideation. They're thinking about hurting themselves or killing themselves.
That's right.
There used to be a scale, and I think it's still current, that I use. It's a 9-point scale.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the specificity of the thoughts regarding method, place, and time.
Yeah.
And each one is assigned a 3. And if you're up with 6, 7, 8, 9, then you refer.
Absolutely.
Refer. If you are not sure whether to refer to a professional, make the mistake of referring.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yes.
we can't tell people to go.
Of course.
We can't force them to go. But when I have made such recommendations, the answer that comes back usually is, well, I don't know who to go to. Where do you find a person like this?
Sure.
Some responsible churches are responsible without doing what I'm about to say, but some responsible churches keep lists of vetted professionals.
Absolutely.
And they are carefully qualified
Yeah.
by the church and what their spiritual position is and worldview is. And so I would go to a church that has such
resources.
I don't.
Connections.
By go to, I don't mean attend and become a member of.
of
I
course.
just use it as a resource.
Absolutely.
And churches who have that kind of resource are willing to help. That's why they have it.
Yeah.
So
I have loved sitting back. You've been talking since we've started the episode, but I am enamored by this, and I so appreciate the way that you've handled this, because it's clear your experience is playing a role here, and I appreciate your carefulness to defer to a professional. It is not hard to find stories of pastors that think that they can carry this kind of burden for their congregates themselves, and that they can be an expert about anything. Or even more sinister sometimes is that the Bible, or that more prayer or more reading your Bible can be the solution for your mental health problems.
not by itself.
By itself, yeah. And that's another whole that's another whole thing. I feel like the core first step in this question, in this answer, is that, yes, pastors have to have an awareness of their own limitations.
Yes.
What are you not a professional in?
Exactly.
And you need to be able to pull that trigger to say, go somewhere else. You need additional help.
Pastors need pastors.
Yeah.
And
humility.
Most of us don't have a personal pastor.
That's
but
right.
we may have a colleague who is in the church, or there are pastors all over the place. Befriend enough of them that you can know who is going to give me good advice here, who has this experience, who's walked down this road longer than I have, and go to those people. Now, there are certain guidelines. I think that, I'm certain that as a pastor, I have had to counsel children who have been victims of sexual abuse or alleged sexual abuse. And I just say that conservatively because they have been abused, you know. Or, what am I doing here? Why is mom bringing this child to me? I am very careful about never doing that kind of counseling without another pastor in the room with me. I don't talk to children about what happened to you and where were you touched and who did this and so forth. But I will do enough of it to determine that we've got an issue here. Now, that may be a criminal issue. And we have, confusingly, in the pastoral profession, what's called the clergy penitent privilege. And what do we say outside of this confession room?
That's right.
Where people are talking.
Absolutely.
I don't know if we should go there, but I will for a moment.
Please dip in. Let's dip in.
Okay. What is said to us I am a pastor. I am an ordained pastor. And and I've had pastor roles in churches. And what is said to me in that role is confidential. It is. Even the courts can't make me talk. Although there have been times when certain people have tried to break that privilege and pass laws. Well, there was a law passed in April or May of this year, 2025, that if we hear a confession of child abuse, we are now mandatory reporters to report that one particular issue.
Do you mean 2024?
No, I mean 2025. This year. Oh, you're right. 2024.
We're recording this in March of 2025.
Okay. Yes, it's been a year almost. It's been a year. Thank you. Disorientation as to time and space is maybe an issue. Should I go see somebody? Okay.
It's great.
We and this issue of do I report this or do I not report this? I have never had a problem with
deciding
with that. But I have always asked permission. I think we need help with this. I think, what do you think about my talking to somebody who's a professional? I have had the answer, no, don't tell anybody. And I intend to end this issue with me by killing myself this afternoon at 3 o'clock in the car. I'm going to run it off a cliff, and here's where the cliff. Okay, that's a 9. Now where the specificity is explicit. Will I do something about that? And the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
It's loving for me to do something about that.
That's right.
One lady who told me that said, are you going to report that now? And it's almost as, I hope you will, or double think everything that you're hearing. But the answer is, yes, I will. Now, I will tell you another incident, and this is something that you will never know and cannot really be traced. But years ago, and I mean decades ago, a man came to me and said, I have killed some people. And I would never reveal his name. The damage was done, although there may be a propensity for him to go do this again. Okay, he is now dead. Everybody that I know was living professionally in that era, was long ago, is probably deceased. So I never said a word to anybody about that. Well, there I am as listening to a confession in a church.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some people who say you've got to be in a pastoral position. Even people have touted the idea, if you're a pastor and you're doing counseling, in order for the clergy penitent privilege to be effective or executed,
Yeah.
there has to be a Bible present. Well, that's ridiculous.
Like physically?
Physically, you have to have one right there.
That's why.
And then the other end of that spectrum is pastoring is a state of being. A pastor, I am one.
Sure. Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with my role in employment somewhere.
Right.
I am one wherever I go,
Yeah.
and many people, most maybe, who encounter me know that.
Yeah. Because
So-
you are pastoral.
That's what I am.
Yes.
But let's don't go any deeper into this right now.
Sure.
A pastor should refer somebody, or I would say anybody should refer somebody if there is an issue there.
Yeah.
Now, are there consequences from a person going to see a professional? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
There are. If a person self-admits to a hospital or to a professional, and there is detected a likelihood of harm to himself, herself, or others, then they will have what is just almost flippantly called a 5150, which is the number of a law that says that we can hold you for 72 hours and evaluate you to prevent the damage that you have indicated that you want to do.
Or that you could be capable.
Or that you could be capable of doing. Will that report have any consequences? The answer is yes. It's possible now somebody applies for a job somewhere, and that job has responsibility over the care and well-being of other people, and it could be law enforcement, it could be it could be almost education, anything.
Yeah.
That information is revealed, and people could just be disqualified as an applicant for that job because of that. There are consequences, but the consequences are not as severe as someone actually hurting themselves.
That's right.
So
Absolutely. Or others. Yeah.
This is a complex issue.
This is a huge question. Like the longer we're here, we're almost to the end of our time already for this segment, and I have 17 follow-up questions still. Let me try to hone in on like one or two summarized kind of points in my mind. Number one, I think that the discretion and the humility in a pastor to say, I don't know how to handle this properly, you need to see a professional.
Yes.
Just the ability to say that is key. I would also apply that same importance, the importance of that exact humility in that kind of situation also applies to teachers and parents and any...
I agree.
Right? Even just friendships.
Yes.
Anything. Like the ability for any person to tell another person that I'm not capable of helping in this way, see a professional.
Yes.
That's almost universal. The second thing that is in my mind is about the hit or miss aspect of Christian counselors specifically, or Christians. There are I'm aware of people that have specifically sought out professional help, licensed psychologists, etc., but through a Christian lens, right? And there can be a weird blending of things, of professional, help and sort of more traditional pastoral Christianese language.
Yes.
That can just get messy for people.
It can.
And that's like a one-off situation kind of thing. But I would just say that pastors, Christian psychologists, whatever, need to be super careful. Like I said earlier, the prescription for things like depression, really anything that could be going on, is not necessarily read your Bible more. It isn't necessarily a lack of prayer or a lack of faith. And that is so often put on people that come to pastors with a
I suspect
with
that's
a severe
yes.
need that you're lacking in faith.
Yes.
You're not reading your
No.
Bible enough, and it becomes this very legalistic.
The healer of these issues is King Jesus himself, and he uses many tools.
Yes.
And some of those tools are professionals who know what they're doing in this area. Some of these psychotic issues, or we used to say neurotic, but that's been taken out.
Sure.
Nobody uses that term anymore. But some of these behavioral issues are very complex.
Absolutely.
And they need, some are have a biological or physiological pinning below them. There is more and more research today. I was reading just this week because I kind of follow this stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
There are more and more, especially in DSM-5, symptoms that look at a biological, nutritional, physiological underpinning to these issues, and some of those can be treated with medication, and it's okay to do that if you're receiving this information from a qualified individual who deals with such things.
Fascinating.
Nouthetic counseling, and we are at the end of this time for doing this, but nouthetic counseling, if you're interested in knowing what the Bible has to say about counseling, Google nouthetic counseling. It's Neuthetic. Nouthetic counseling, and you will get the Greek and the Bible references and long explanations. Matter of fact, you'll be up all night.
For sure, I bet.
It's a big, a big topic.
Yeah.
But it's an important topic for Christians who are Bible-based.
That's right.
To not just simplify and say, "Oh, read this passage."
Absolutely.
So there's my guidance.
I love
there.
that. I love concluding with, again, all things pointing to Christ. That this is a tool, like professional clinical psychologists, and so many other professions that are not directly tied to a church or a ministry. They are tools of God's redemption in our lives.
Yes.
That they have tremendous value. They're there for a purpose. Going to them is not a lack of faith.
No,
going to them is not a sign of weakness. They are important. And
that's because we are depending upon someone else, or depending upon Christ to work through someone else.
Yes.
The Bible says that we are strongest when we are weakest, because that's when we are more dependent upon God.
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Let's conclude that there. That's a fantastic wow. I'm like blown away by how much we managed to cover in this segment. There's so much there. And I think it's so important, and we have been super direct about that, and I'm proud of that. The second segment today, it's always a little bit of a jarring segue, but it's a silly. This is a silly question now. We get to have some fun, or just hang out in a much looser kind of way. The question for you today, Jim, is what is something that you find very easy to do that everyone else seems to find difficult? What's something that comes natural to you that no one else can seem to put together?
I don't know. I don't have an answer right away. I don't know. Let me think. Something that is easy for me that other people have difficulty in grasping.
Yeah. Or maybe just
the first thing that comes to my mind is my knowledge of the English language, its grammar, syntax, and I am a grammar nerd.
Good answer.
And when I listen to someone speak, especially professionally, I can nobody diagrams sentences anymore, but I can almost diagram sentences as I'm listening, and I can hear if someone is trying to be a con or is trying to be deceiving. As some advertisements tend to be, it seems, I can pick those up instantly.
I pick that up in sermons sometimes.
Exactly.
I pick that up from the pulpit.
Well, you can pick it up from the pulpit or from the lectern when politicians talk.
Oh, all the time. Holy cow, yeah.
Yeah, they will say things that you can pick them up from advertisements on television, especially. I mean, why would anybody have to go to medical school anymore? Just watch the advertisements on television. You've got the whole thing.
Exactly.
But if you listen carefully to some of those ads, they're saying nothing.
Yeah.
And they seem to be saying something.
That's right.
And other people have difficulty in seeing that. Not everybody.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But the masses seem to just swallow this hook, line, sinker, rod, reel, boat, and motor. And so I think I have that skill.
That's a fantastic answer, especially for you, because I have, as we've done this podcast and as you have off mic and stuff, we have kind of talked about how the recordings are going, and we'll have feedback for each other, and that's always akin to your feedback for me is, and I'm not ashamed to share this at all, but you have really good advice for me of cleaning up the way that I can just be more direct.
Well, and you for me too.
Yeah,
we share that back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think quickly. It doesn't have to be that quickly, but what other areas that I find easy that other people do not? And I'm not sure that I don't twirl a baton.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, not again.
That's going to be
no longer. I gave that up a long time ago. And I seem to be able to have critical thinking skills that some people don't have.
Sure.
But I have studied logic fallacies. I have. I would still like to go to law school, and I don't want to be an attorney. I want to go to law school because that's where you learn how to think. Math classes will help too.
Absolutely.
But that attorneys can double, triple think things because of their use of language and because of their knowledge of the. I think maybe critical thinking skills.
I like that. Yeah.
And
were there things that came natural to you, that sort of the answers to this question that you look back and say, oh, that's why I got into the restaurant business, or that's why I got into the Navy, or that's why I got into education, is I was good at
none of that.
Okay.
None of that. Almost we have career changes in our life.
Yeah.
The longer you live, the more careers you're going to have.
Sure.
I was dragged into every single one of them.
Wow, yeah.
I joined, what was the first one you mentioned?
Restaurants.
No. I didn't. I spent 27 years in the restaurant business as a manager and as corporate controller and and as a bartender and
there's
waiting to. Okay, I just because I wanted some extra money.
Yeah,
that's how that got started.
But there had to have been some propensity for that.
There wasn't. No.
Management?
No.
Budgets?
No.
No?
I learned all that in there.
Wow.
But, and I picked up on bookkeeping, accounting, and so forth. But that's not a passion. That's just a skill. I had a passion for learning American Sign Language, but that was just a curiosity and a fascination with the people who were using it.
Look at where we are now.
I know. I joined the Navy to avoid going to Vietnam. Well, I'd graduated.
Ironically,
yes. And at that time, if you were in a university and you could stay in the university an extra year, and you took a test and passed it, then you didn't have to go to Vietnam. So I took the test. I passed the test. I got another major in my bachelor's and went to Vietnam anyway. But I joined the Navy.
Sure.
And that was not a passion.
Sure.
I'm in education, but I'd never really wanted to be in school education.
Sure.
I have been a teacher, I think, since conception, because that's just something that is born within you that is God's gift. I didn't recognize it was what I am until it was pointed out to me.
Yeah.
And I mean pointed out to me in my 40s and my 50s, because I was still, but I had been teaching all my life. I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I was 4 years old, my dad would teach me a game. And I would go out and show my friends how to play the game. I didn't care if I played the game with them. I wanted to teach them how to play the game. Okay, I look back on that and say, you were a teacher back then. And I've been doing that all my life, and I'm still doing that.
Fascinating. I love it. That's a great place to wrap up.
Thanks for the question.
That's a fun question.
I don't know how fun it was.
No, it was.
Okay.
It was.
Okay.
All right, so with that, we're going to wrap up another episode here of Brewing with Jim. In closing, as we always do, we want to invite our audience to reach out to us. So we've got an email address set up, brewingwithjim@gmail.com. As always, folks, please send us your stories, your questions, your just tell us about yourselves, where you're from, where you're listening from.
Yes.
We love to hear that. That's brewingwithjim@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you all very much. Have a great week.
Good to be with you.
The topics that are covered and the answers that are offered during episodes of Brewing with Jim are designed to mine the wisdom attained from a life of pastoral ministry and care. They do not constitute professional or clinical training or expertise in the areas of counseling or mental health. CVCS and its podcast network want to provide a platform for the discipleship of our community. Brewing with Jim is our attempt to foster that environment in a format that is accessible for everyone to participate in. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed during the show are the speaker's own, and they may or may not represent the views, thoughts, or opinions of Capistrano Valley Christian Schools or its faculty. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. Capistrano Valley Christian Schools is a Christian JK-12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Be sure to check out, subscribe to, and leave a review of this show and the other shows on our network on your podcast player of choice. Doing so supports the school community in a multitude of ways. For more information about the CVCS Podcast Network or any of our other shows, check out cvcs.org or email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the whole network, this is Mr. Jasper saying thank you again for listening and stay tuned for more.